We spend so much time, don't we, focused on the result. Did we win? Did we hit the target?
Absolutely. It's all about the outcome.
But what if the real insight, the real juice, is actually in the process, in the doing? There's this really compelling idea that comes up in this MBA protocol stuff that our bodies aren't just like taxis getting our heads around.
Well, not just vehicles.
Exactly. They're how we actually have a world. And that phrase really stuck with me. The body is our general medium for having a world.
It's powerful. But the catch is...
Yeah.
The catch is really noticing what's going on while it's going on, while we're moving, while we're acting. It's surprisingly hard to tune into.
It is. It's like a dance between doing something and being aware you're doing it. We're moving constantly, but our focus is usually out there.
On the ball, the finish line, the other person.
Yeah, and we miss all this rich internal feedback.
Well, that's what we're diving into today, isn't it? Trying to bridge that gap.
Exactly. We've got these excerpts looking at the Samba protocol, which kind of gives us a framework for this body world thing.
The theory behind it.
And then there's the Inner Court podcast series by Terence Hughes, which sounds fascinating, these movement exercises he talks about.
Yeah, he calls them embodied koans.
Embodied koans. Okay, I love that. Like a riddle you solve with sensation, not just logic.
Precisely. Physical puzzles designed to spark, self-awareness.
So our mission today, for everyone listening, is really about feeling your way back into things.
Yeah.
Into a more direct sense of the world through, mindful movement.
And the inner court uses tennis as its setting, its kind of laboratory.
Right, the tennis court.
But the ideas, the principles, they're universal. It's for any mover, really. Anyone maybe feeling a bit out of sync, disconnected from their body.
Or just wanting to find that flow again,
Yeah.
Whether it's on an actual court or just, walking down the street.
Exactly. Samba gives us the why, maybe, and the inner court gives us some practical hows.
Okay, so where does the inner court start us off? How do we begin this journey?
It starts beautifully simply. Just grounding, arriving.
Okay.
The instruction is basically stand tall, feet about shoulder width apart, knees soft, not locked, arms just relaxed by your sides.
Sounds familiar. Standard ready position, maybe.
Kind of. But the key difference is the invitation to really feel the ground. Not just notice it's there, but feel it as something you're standing with.
Standing with, not just on.
Exactly. That little shift in perspective, like the ground is actively participating in your balance, a dynamic partner.
That does change things, doesn't it? Suddenly it's not just inert concrete or grass.
Right. And then from that feeling of connection below, the guidance is to gently let your awareness sort of drop down from the chatter in your head.
Which is usually pretty loud.
Yeah. Into the actual sensations in your body. Just feel it.
It sounds so basic, but honestly, in our very heady world, just giving yourself permission to feel, to inhabit your body like that, it feels almost radical.
It really can be. It's a countercultural move in a way.
Okay, so we're grounded, we're feeling. What's next in this embodied koan?
Well, building on that foundation, it moves into imagining a forehand stroke, but really slowly.
The tennis connection.
Yeah, but the goal isn't performance here. It's not about hitting a perfect imaginary shot or critiquing your form.
It's about the process again.
Exactly. It's about meticulously noticing the sequence unfold, like the arms starting to lift, maybe feeling that tiny initial cue from the hips as they begin to rotate, the weight subtly shifting from one foot to the other, the way your spine coils slightly, almost like a spring loading up.
Becoming a really curious observer of all those little micro movements that happen before the main event.
Yes, and even in just imagining it, you can start to notice how different parts are already coordinating. It's a little taste of that synergy we might talk about later.
Okay, so you're feeling this unfolding, and then...
And then comes this really interesting part, a pause. You hold the shape.
Hold the preparation.
Yeah, hold that feeling of potential energy you've gathered. And in that pause, you're invited to ask yourself some, quite deep questions.
Okay, like what?
Things like, can you move without forcing? Or, can you pinpoint the initiation? Where does the movement actually begin? And maybe even who is moving and who is noticing the movement.
Wow. Okay, those aren't technical questions about tennis.
Not at all. They're not about finding the right biomechanical answer. It's more about using that pause, that stillness within the preparation to interrupt the automatic pilot.
To shine a light on your habits. Asking, am I consciously doing this or is it just happening to me?
Precisely. That pause creates a little space, a pocket for awareness to surface.
Okay. And after the pause,
Yeah.
you don't just stay coiled up forever.
No. Just like in a rally, you recover.
Huh.
You move back to that centered, ready state.
And I'm guessing the awareness follows you back?
That's the invitation. Bring that same mindful attention to the recovery. Ask yourself, what part of me leads the return? Is it my feet? My core? Am I just snapping back out of habit? Or am I returning with awareness?
That question about habit versus awareness,
Yeah.
that really hits home. It feels like so much of our movement, maybe so much of our lives, runs on these pre-programmed scripts.
It really does. We just play them out without necessarily feeling them out.
So this is about consciously rewriting, or at least noticing, the script.
I think so. And then naturally, it mirrors the sequence on the other side of the backhand.
Same slow, deliberate exploration.
Exactly. That same sense of slow unfolding, feeling the movement, ripple maybe through your torso, across the shoulder, extending out through the arm, like a wave.
And again, the emphasis is on what? Intention.
Yeah, intention over tension, moving from awareness, not just brute force or habit, feeling the initiation. You might even notice that interplay of, say, pulling and releasing in the muscles and fascia that's hinting at tensegrity, that balance holding us together.
And integrity. Okay, we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
So more questions during the back end.
Yes, similar vibe. What feels awake in this movement right now? What parts feel maybe forgotten or still asleep?
That's interesting. Acknowledging the dead zones, too.
And crucially, can you meet that sleeping part with curiosity? Not judgment, not trying to force it awake, just noticing.
That gentle curiosity seems key throughout this. It's not about fixing yourself.
Not at all. It's about becoming intimate with your own experience, whatever it is in that moment.
And then how does this whole sequence wrap up?
It concludes by returning to standing, back to stillness, back to that initial feeling of presence you cultivated.
Just standing again.
Just standing. And the invitation is simply to notice. Notice any subtle shifts. Maybe your weight feels distributed differently. Maybe some area feels a little softer, less braced. What feels alive now?
It's like letting the body speak after the movement, listening for the echoes.
Beautifully put. Yeah, it's like a quiet conversation has taken place through these imagined motions.
And out of this very simple internal practice, comes this idea of the inner court.
Yes. Which is such a great metaphor. It's not just the literal court, the space between the white lines.
Right.
It's more like the space between the doing and the knowing of the doing.
Okay, unpack that a bit. The space between doing and knowing.
It's that subtle layer of awareness that can observe yourself in action. You're hitting the ball, you're moving, but there's also a part of you that knows you're hitting the ball, that feels the movement from the inside.
So you're not just the player, the executor of technique.
You're also the one who feels the game, as the source puts it. Even in the stillness between actions, it's recognizing that deeper embodied layer.
Which leads to these really fundamental questions bubbling up.
Exactly, like, what's really going on, while what I think I'm doing is going on? And the big one, perhaps, where do I reside in all this? Am I just my actions? Or am I also the awareness watching the action?
That really makes you stop and think, where do I live in my own experience?
It's profound, isn't it? And these slow movements, these embodied koans, they act like a key.
A key what?
To unlocking what the source calls an invisible vocabulary.
An invisible vocabulary.
Yeah.
Spoken by the body.
Yeah, exactly. It's not words, it's the language of pure sensation. Subtle shifts in tension, timing, flow, things our bodies understand inherently, even if our conscious minds don't have words for them yet.
It's like learning a language by immersion, not grammar rules. You just feel the meaning.
That's a great analogy. It shifts the focus from just how to move the external mechanics to understanding how movement organizes itself from within. There's often an inherent elegance to it.
Which hints at that idea of simplexity you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. Simplexity, how relatively simple starting points or structures can lead to surprisingly complex and efficient outcomes.
Okay, so this invisible vocabulary is connected to deeper principles of movement organization.
I think so. It brings us to concepts like tensegrity.
Right, you mentioned that like a tent.
Sort of. That balance of tension and compression throughout the whole structure of your body isn't just stacked bones. It's held together dynamically by this web of push and pull in your muscles and fascia.
Okay, got it. And simplexity we touched on. What else?
And synergy, which is really about relational intelligence.
Relational intelligence.
Yeah,
between all the parts of your body, but also between your body, the space around you, and your intention.
Yeah.
how they all cooperate, collaborate.
Like a well-coordinated dance where everything works together smoothly.
Mm-hmm. And the amazing thing is, you can start to feel these principles even in these slow, mindful, imagined movements.
How so?
Well, you might sense the tensegrity in the way your muscles subtly engage and release, keeping you balanced. You might feel the complexity in how a simple intention to turn creates this fluid ripple through your whole system.
And the synergy in the way your hips and spine and arm all seem to know how to work together without you micromanaging every detail.
Exactly. Focusing on the inner feeling, the inner court, naturally leads you to experience these deeper organizing principles.
It really flips the script on how we usually think about training or improving movement, doesn't it?
It does. We're often so focused on the external speed, power, the look of the technique. Measure everything. Analyze the video.
Right. But maybe the real key to unlocking potential lies in cultivating this inner literacy, understanding the invisible game, as the source calls it.
Yeah, training what can't be seen. Or from stillness to synergy. Those potential future topics sound fascinating. It's a completely different approach.
It is, and ultimately it all seems to circle back to that core invitation from the inner court.
Which was
Stay with the rhythm beneath the
a
rhythm.
rhythm beneath the rhythm. Wow.
Yeah. Tuning into those deeper, quieter currents of sensation and awareness that are always flowing just under the surface of our obvious actions.
So the takeaway for listeners, keep exploring that relationship between the doing and the knowing.
I think so. Keep asking, what does it actually feel like to be moving? Whether you're playing a sport, working in the garden, or just walking to the shop.
And maybe start to notice how these underlying principles, tensegrity, simplexity, synergy, might show up. Not just physically.
Right. But maybe also in how we learn things, how we interact with people, how we solve problems. Could there be a kind of tensegrity in a good conversation, a synergy in a team project?
That's a really interesting thought to leave people with. There's this whole other layer, this invisible game happening all the time.
If we just pause and feel our way into it.